Next, it's my honor to introduce Mark Prain. Mark is the founding executive director of the Hillary Institute of International Leadership. As Mark says, he has Sir Edmund Hillary sitting on his shoulder, who helped found the Hillary Institute, his namesake organization, going around the world finding leaders, finding people with courage, and supporting them and accelerating their impact. And today, I've asked Mark to share with us what's happening in New Zealand with the incredible leadership of their Prime Minister. As you may have heard, it's quite innovative, courageous leadership she's taking around well-being, not short-term financial returns, human well-being. So with that, please join me in welcoming Mark Prain.
Thank you, Amy, for those very kind words of introduction. I don't know about you, but this has been a pretty remarkably intense afternoon, very full on. And so I'm going to slow things down briefly. E te atua, tukumahena ko mahaki, kia totonu, te rangemari e roto na uatanga. Me te kaha ki te whakatika, nā roma rotanga. Kia matau, kia marama, o ki kinga, re reketanga. Kia matau, kia marama, o ki kinga, re reketanga. In the language of our indigenous people, it is a transliteration of the Serenity Prayer. Remind us not only what we can change, what we can achieve, but that we must go on with this fight. As Amy said, I have the privilege to spend my life as a global scout. I have a carbon footprint which is terrifying. The upside is I get to work with and discover some rather remarkable people around this planet who are in this good fight, who've been in it for some good time, and who I have the enormous privilege with my organization to work with over a period of a year. So there's one Hillary laureate every year, and one only. My job is to find them. Let me tell you who they are very quickly. Let's start with the women. We're in our 12th operational year. We have 9 laureates. The first is the remarkable Amy Christensen, the host. Of course, Amy's work you know well, not just in this community, but in the remarkable work that she did in the Beltway in Washington and all around the planet. And secondly, with us here today, our current laureate, the truly remarkable Megan Falone. Megan's work with women across 96 countries is just staggering. You've seen it. It's not that she doesn't work with men. It's just the problem is when the experience of working with men tended to happen, they rushed off to the nearest urban centre and monetized it. Women stay more frequently in community. The third, in terms of the wonderful eloquence of Mitch, this afternoon is a colleague of his and ours, Atosa Sultani, the founder of Amazon Watch. Atosa wandered into the jungle at the age of 17 because she had a dream. She's been working for 35 years since in the Amazon. The fourth is Peggy Lou. Peggy Lou reconceived the China dream based on not replicating, with the greatest of respect, the American dream, the China dream for the 21st century. The men, there are some of them. Michael Broon, familiar to many of you, remarkable chief executive of the Sierra Club. Secondly, Tim Good Lord, I'm getting old and tired. He's a radical economist. Thank you, Tim Jackson. had the temerity to write a book which shook the world, talking about growth. Talking about prosperity without growth. Jeremy Leggett, the founder of Carbon Tracker in the UK. Of course, the influence on the whole world of stranded assets and the continual impact on what, in fact, the future of the corporate contribution might be based on reality rather than short-term profit and greed. Also the founder of Solar Century, founder of Sunny Money, the largest single distributor of solar tech into Africa. Finally, former Kiribati president Onoti Tong. Onoti's 67, his father's 85. He will die there. Onoti will die there. He cannot make the same promise to his 8 children. 4,000 years of whakapapa, 4,000 years of genealogy are going to have to be translocated somehow. 103,000 Kiribati living on the principal atoll of Tarawa have to go somewhere within the next 10 to 20 years. As one of our former speakers said, this is now. This is not a projection of what might be. But today, I'm here to talk very proudly about what's happening in my own country, which for a decade, frankly, prior to this new government, was asleep. We were in the business of fast following, whatever that means. This young woman, at the tender age of 38, came to power in our country in what is of necessity a coalition government. She has a populist wing, she has a green wing, she has a centrist Labour wing, which she leads. So it's a management act. It's a management act which you would imagine would be very difficult to make courageous decisions and then turn those decisions into action quickly. We have had in our home city, myself and my beloved chairman who's with me here today, Aniki Goodall, a recent example of what's possible based on crisis, based on courage. As you may well know, earlier this year, New Zealand, the supposedly safest country on the planet, often ranked as one of the happiest places on the planet, was rocked by a right-wing, far-right attack on 2 mosques in our city of 133 different communities. Priding itself on diversity, we had 51 dead in 15 minutes. The response of the Prime Minister was considered globally to be extraordinary. The response of Kiwis was also, thankfully, extraordinary, in that we stood with our Muslim communities. But in terms of what can be done in a country where the number of guns in our population is fairly high, in fact, not that per capita behind here in the US, legislation was passed within 6 weeks to ban, totally ban, semi-automatic weapons. In 6 weeks. When I think about the fight here in this country, of the extraordinary leadership of the young generation from Florida, when you think about what's possible and what's not possible, this is courage. Most importantly, the public response to that has been a 90% response in terms of taking up the government's offer of buyback. People got it, people acted, Jacinda led. Politicians don't often lead, she led. Not only the first and youngest female Prime Minister on the planet, She then had the temerity to have a child within a year of becoming Prime Minister as well. So other than Benazir Bhutto, the only woman who's ever had a child as Prime Minister. Courage. She took it a step further, however, and with Macron went onto the global stage and challenged, in terms of the future we want, the horror that this attack was beamed via social media globally as it was happening. It was streamed globally. Again, the response of the Prime Minister was, this is going to stop. 16 countries around the world, the European Commission, and most importantly, the tech giants themselves in this space have signed up to what's called the Christchurch Core. Commitment by governments and tech to eliminate terrorist and violent extremist content online. The courage it takes to sit in a computer alone and add your anonymous voice to the various horrors that we are confronted by too often on this planet is something we need to stop. Again, leadership, and courage. And to make the point that Amy has principally asked me to make today, our economy has been reframed. It is based now on an approach which is based in well-being. We're embedding the notion of making decisions that aren't just about growth for growth's sake, but how are our people faring? How is their overall well-being and their mental health? How is our environment doing? These are the measures that will give us a true measure of our success. In terms of on the ground, what that means is a living standards framework and a well-being budget where if you're a minister and you want to spend money, you have to prove you're going to improve generational well-being. Our people are telling us that politics are not delivering and meeting their expectations. This is not woolly. This is not woo-woo. It is critical. This is how we bring meaning and results for the people who voted for us, and it's not ideological. It doesn't have to be something that just progressive governments do. It's about finally saying, this is how we match expectations and try to build trust back in our institutions and our democracies again. It doesn't matter where in the world we are. Some of the work we're doing now will reap the benefits in 20 years' time, but if you start looking at the lens of politics through what we like in terms of the future we want, kindness, empathy, well-being, then it doesn't matter what happens just in the political cycle. It matters what happens in the long game. I won't bore you with this. We haven't got enough time. But basically, if you're interested, it's up online and you can talk to me about how this works in practice. We can do this. I had the pleasure, thanks to Amy yesterday, to meet Jay Inslee. In terms of the presidential campaign here, in terms of what's possible in federal government, I've just painted you a picture of the land we live in right now, and it's a good place to be. I understand the struggle here is somewhat more difficult. Jay has the courage to put climate front and center. What will the future be? We fight, we fight, we get up in the morning again, we fight, and we win, in the words of Mike Broon. Something that will be echoed by the one other Hillary laureate I forgot to mention. It's an extraordinary oversight, which of course is the truly extraordinary Professor Johan Rockström, perhaps one of the world's most preeminent climate scientists, now running the Potsdam Institute. But I will leave you with the voice of our own Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern.
You don't have to cede power by acting on climate change. There's nothing to fear about your individual political status. Actually, this is about being on the right side of history. And do you want to be a leader that you look back in time and say that you were on the wrong side of the argument when the world was crying out for a solution?
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that, I think.
Yeah, well said, well said. Yeah.
Kia ora tātou katoa. Thank you for your kindness and listening.